Hey guys, we're here today in Dragon's Dogma 2, going over 10 important tips that you need to know as early as you can in the game. Tip number 1 is to manage your weight very closely. When you pull up the pause menu, at the bottom left of the screen, you can see a bar giving you a quick glimpse at what your carry weight is. But if you click the Items tab, the left side of the screen will give you a more detailed look at you and your pawn's carry weight, telling you the exact kilograms you're carrying and what your load is out of very light, average, heavy, very heavy, and over encumbered. The heavier you or your pawns are, and the more weight you carry, the slower your characters move, and the more stamina they consume. This is a huge deal for the Arisen, because fast travel systems in Dragon's Dogma 2 are fairly scarce, and you'll want to be running around the map as quick as you can. This can also have a huge effect in combat, when your movement speed is not enough to get out of the area of an attack, especially from the big creatures, since the Thief is the only vocation that gets a dodge, and movement abilities are not in abundance. It's important to monitor your pawns as well, because if their movement speed is low as you're traveling around, they can show up late to a fight, ending up in your death, and they also suffer from the inability to get out of the way of large attacks. This will bring us right on to tip number 2, which can help with the weight in your inventory, and that is to combine often. Dragon's Dogma allows you to craft in your inventory by either using recipes that you've already learned, or simply going to the Combine menu and mixing the materials you have into consumables. Doing this often while you're exploring can help lower the weight in your inventory and also give you much needed health and stamina consumables. Ideally, if you're harvesting quite often and combining as often as you should, then you'll be all set up for tip number 3, which is to give your pawns consumables as well. Obviously, your pawns are taking a lot of the same hits as you without your tactics or decision making, which hopefully is better than the AI. Although having a mage in your group that can put out heals is very helpful, sometimes they go down, the group is too far spread apart, the mage is out of energy, or you don't have one at all. In all of these cases, it's good to have consumables on the different pawns, or at least the pawns that will be taking damage like tanks, and they will use them on their own to heal up when they see fit. The 4th tip we're going to go over is to hire pawns often, especially in the lower levels when you're leveling quickly. As you level past the 2 additional pawns in your group that are not your main pawn, they will become more inefficient and start being outclassed by the content. Early on in the game, it might seem like Rift Crystals are going to be rare, and I wouldn't recommend splurging on them, but it can be worth it to spend some Rift Crystals to get a pawn a couple levels higher than yourself, so they last longer in your party before becoming obsolete. Along with the fact that a higher level pawn will come with more abilities, skills, and augments, making them a much more effective combatant. If you're hiring pawns often and you're also keeping them stocked up with consumables, it's important to make sure that you empty your pawns out of all the consumables and extra things in their inventory before you dismiss them, or you will lose those items for good and not be able to recover them. Which leads us directly into tip number 5, which is to store all important items that you don't want to carry on your main pawn. This way, if you forget to take all the items from a pawn before you dismiss it, you don't lose anything too important. Or if unfortunately a pawn goes down and you are not able to res it in time, you won't lose anything that you didn't want to. And if you make sure that only your main pawn has important stuff on it, then you could hypothetically play an archer, fire an explosive arrow into a bridge that you're standing on with 2 pawns, drop yourselves into the water, be consumed by the brine, and not lose anything that severe. Tip number 6, explore off the beaten path. Dragon's Dogma 2 has a ton of things to discover, like golden trove beetles, treasure chests, secret tokens, caves, and harvesting spots full of plentiful materials. Don't get so caught up heading towards your main objective that you forget to see what is in the world, as there are a lot of things hiding behind each corner. I have found a lot of powerful gear and plentiful gold in areas that I've just stumbled across and were nowhere near any of my current objectives. Tip number 7 is to not have any quests selected while you are exploring. As you come across various ladders in the game, difficult to reach places, or gaps in the ground that a pawn has the ability to help you traverse, they will bring it up to you, and if you click the Go command, they will initiate one of their abilities to help levitate up ledges, launch you up them, or they will climb ladders themselves and open up chests that they discover. If you have a pawn in your group that has knowledge of your current quest you're on, they will also suggest leading you to the destination and helping you with the objective. In both these situations, the Go command tells them to initiate this. This means if you have a quest selected and you are out exploring, if you come across a ladder or a chasm or a ledge that you need to jump up and your pawn offers to help, when you tell them to go, oftentimes it will tell the pawn to go ahead and continue on the quest that you want to be doing, instead of helping you traverse the terrain. If you don't have any quests selected, then they will actually effectively help you traverse the terrain because they won't be trying to lead you out of the area. Tip number 8 is to utilize your map waypoints. Anytime you pull up your map, you'll see at the bottom a hotkey to place a waypoint. You have 5 of these at your disposal, and obviously you can't always continue exploring, and sometimes you'll be near a main objective you're trying to accomplish, and you won't have time to go off the beaten path or lose track of where you are, especially on timed missions. Placing one of your 5 waypoints here can let you know that you want to come back to this area, even though you might have to write down what exactly was at this waypoint, since it doesn't seem like the game has a way to change the name of the waypoint or give any indication of why you put it here. Also keep in mind when you pull up the waypoint menu to place one, you have the option to place a new one or move to the spot on the map where the selected waypoint is, helping you track down what waypoints you have placed. Tip number 9 is to level multiple different vocations. You might be someone who is unsure of which vocation you're going to play and have been testing a bunch of them out, or you may have known what you were going to be all along and have only been leveling a single vocation. Regardless of which situation you're in, it can be a good idea to level each of the different vocations at least a little bit. I recommend to rank 3 in order to unlock a few of their augments, because the vocation's passive augments can be equipped regardless if you're on that vocation or not, which means you can mix and match passives and optimize your build for the best output. The Thief gets an augment, which can make them less likely to draw aggro, which can help you if you're playing any of the classes besides a fighter and a warrior. And the Archer gets an augment that increases your maximum stamina, which can be helpful to every single vocation in the game. Make sure that you level them all up at least a little bit and gain access to as many augments as you can as quick as possible. And tip number 10 is very basic, but still needs to be said, and that is to avoid night, at least when you're in the early stages of the game, as the enemies become much more dangerous and it is very easy to get overwhelmed and swarmed. It can sometimes be hard to tell what time it is in the game. Periodically you will be able to tell that it is dusk, and I recommend going to camp at a nearby campfire. Or in some cases you may have just camped, but then spent a lot of time inside a nearby cave or battling a couple large creatures, and it can be a good idea to go right back to the same campsite and camp again to make sure that you have as much sunlight as possible so you can avoid getting caught at night without being near another camp. These 10 tips are very important to know early on in the game to get you started off on the right foot and to avoid some annoyances and frustrations so that you can have the best experience possible. Hopefully they helped you, and if you have any important tips or need to know things, please throw them down in the comments so that you can help out your fellow Arisen with their adventures and their battles. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.